Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something so oddly dramatic, so delightfully obscure that it might just be the slowest epic in Greek mythology. You've heard of gods and monsters, of battles and betrayals. But tonight, it's music. Yup. A god with a golden lyre and a hairy forest creature with a flute go head-to-head in the most overhyped talent show history never asked for. You find yourself under a velvet sky, stars sprinkled like the glitter someone forgot to clean up. The moon is doing its best spotlight impression, and a gentle wind rustles the leaves as if even nature is getting comfy. Somewhere, far off, you hear the delicate echo of string music, soft, like someone plucking golden threads through mist. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I mean, it's Greek mythology told like bedtime jazz, so if that's your thing, welcome home. Also, drop a comment. Where are you listening from, and what time is it where you are? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk slowly now, your feet crunching over grass that smells oddly like rosemary and regret. The trees around you are tall and half listening, their bark creaking like old theater seats. There's something in the air tonight, something ancient, a little dusty, like a harp string that hasn't been touched since before playlists existed. Then, there it is. Music. Not just any music, something rich, warm, seductive in its quiet confidence. It flows like honey but hits the air like silk. You follow it, of course. Who wouldn't? In a myth, you always follow the music, and that's either where the plot happens or where you get eaten by sirens. But hey, tonight, no sirens. Promise, as you step through a small arch of laurel leaves, you find the source. A man, no, something more than a man, sits on a flat rock shaped like it was sculpted for just this moment. He glows, not a sparkly vampire glow, more like golden hour photography for the soul. His fingers dance across the strings of a lyre, each note lifting into the air like it's late for something divine. That's Apollo, god of music, sunlight, healing, plague, awkward mix, we know, poetry, and generally being the overachiever of Olympus. And yet, right now, he looks almost bored. Or maybe haunted. The music is beautiful, yes, but it's also sad, deep, lonely, like a farewell whispered through an empty concert hall. You sit nearby. He doesn't notice you. That's fine. You're not here to talk. You're here to listen. The melody loops in gentle waves, comforting and nostalgic, as if the air itself remembers something from long ago. Then, unexpectedly, Apollo speaks. Not to you exactly, more to himself. I should have let him go. It's not a confession, not really. More like a thought that slipped past his lips. And even the crickets go quiet. You feel the air press around you, heavy with stories not yet told. Because this isn't just any song. This is the song, the one he wrote after that day. And slowly, like a curtain lifting, the tale begins to play out around you. More dream than memory, more lullaby than legend. You drift into it, not walking anymore, but floating gently down the stream of story. It begins in a forest not so far from here, centuries ago. A place where satyrs danced and trees whispered gossip, where the gods visited like tourists and sometimes left behind a little chaos or a magical object, or both. In this forest lived a satyr named Marsyas, half man, half goat, all attitude. Not the brightest reed in the flute, but spirited. You might think of him as the guy who finds a cursed violin in a pawn shop and says, "Cool, let's rock." One day, Marsyas stumbled across something lying in the underbrush. A flute. Ordinary at first glance. Two simple pipes, smooth, curved, made of bone. It hummed faintly when touched, like a battery still holding its last drop of charge. Most would have left it alone. Marsyas picked it up and blew into it. The sound that came out? Stunning, melancholic, rich, full of something primal and ancient. Even the squirrels paused their acorn bickering to listen. That was the moment it all changed. Marsyas didn't know the flute once belonged to Athena. Yes, that Athena, warrior goddess, weaver of wisdom, inventor of olive trees and grudges. She'd crafted the instrument, tried to play it, then saw her own face puff up in a reflection and threw it into the woods in a fit of divine vanity. Apparently, cheek puffing just wasn't on brand, but Marsyas? He loved it, practiced every day, played for animals, nymphs, waterfalls, anyone or anything that would listen, and slowly, word spread. Not just of a satyr with talent, but of music that could move rocks, ripple lakes, even hush the breeze. And one day, just as his playing reached its proudest, fullest crescendo, Apollo heard it. You can imagine how that went. The god of music, whose ego shines brighter than his sunbeam chariot, hearing someone daring to match his skill? That's like Beethoven hearing a kazoo solo from a goatman in the hills and thinking, hold on a second. Now gods don't get jealous the way mortals do. They get mythically petty. Apollo didn't just want to beat Marsyas. He wanted a contest. Public. Final. Spectacular. Because what's a better way to prove you're superior than dragging a flute-playing forest critter into a full-blown godly music battle? So he descended, not with fire, not with thunder, just music. The sky got warmer, the leaves shimmered gold, and Apollo stepped into the clearing like a sponsored celebrity judge. Marsyas, brave or maybe just deeply unaware of consequences, accepted the challenge, and so the stage was set. Not for war. Not for heroism, but for a musical showdown that would echo through time, even if everyone forgot who won, even if no one wanted to remember how it ended. Even if, like Apollo here, you play the same song over and over and still feel the sting of a victory that didn't feel like one at all. But that, of course, is for later. Tonight, you're just getting started, and the forest is waiting. You barely notice the shift as time folds in on itself. The forest grows warmer around you, like a memory pressed between pages. Somewhere above, the stars are doing slow pirouettes, and Apollo's melody still hangs in the air, suspended like a question no one's brave enough to answer. You hear it, his lyre, and now you know, this isn't just music, it's regret, played in perfect tempo. You step deeper into the story, and there he is, Apollo, younger than you remember him from 5 minutes ago, and somehow even more dazzling. His golden hair practically violates your retinas. His robes flow with the casual flair of someone who invented couture before cloth was a thing. And in his hands, the lyre, of course, strings spun from sunlight and sarcasm. You get the sense he's not walking through the forest. He's gliding, like he's on a celestial moving walkway the rest of us mortals just don't have access to. He hums as he goes, casually crafting new scales that would make even professional composers slam their laptops shut in despair. Flowers bloom in his wake. Birds harmonize. Even a bear you pass on the trail is nodding its head to the beat. This is Apollo at his most Apollo. Radiant, effortless, and just a little bit smug. Because here's the thing about Apollo. He doesn't just do music. He is music. The god of the sun, sure, but also of harmony, poetry, truth, healing, and, ironically, plagues. Basically, the Greek pantheon's version of a multi-tool, but prettier. And today, he's got something on his mind. Not love, not war, reputation. He's heard whispers, rumors slipping through olive groves, that someone has been performing music in the hills that rivals his. The nerve, the unfiltered audacity. It's like someone showed up to karaoke night and tried to outsing Beyoncé while chewing olives. Apollo flicks his fingers, and a nearby breeze turns into a wind chime solo. "I suppose it's time I reminded the mortals," he says to no one in particular, "who taught the stars to hum." You roll your eyes a little, but you're also impressed. He is that good. Apollo is not just a musician, he is a performer, a presence. And when he plays, the universe rearranges itself to pay attention. His concerts aren't events. They're geological phenomena. There's a part of you that wonders, just for a second, what it's like to be so talented that you forget humility was ever a thing. Then again, being the God of truth has its downsides, like being wrong very publicly, and often in sandals. As Apollo strides through the forest, the trees gently lean away, like respectful fans giving him space. The birds quiet. Even the cicadas hit pause. You notice his demeanor change. Something tightens in his jaw. He hears it too, a sound, clear and bold, threading through the forest like a dare. It's not a lyre. It's a flute, a melody not divine, but earnest, winding, a little wild, the kind of music that makes you think of dusk and dancing, not cathedrals and sunlight. It stumbles, occasionally. Marsyas never trained in Olympus, but there's heart in every note, and oh, Apollo hates it. He finds the clearing easily. Satyrs aren't known for subtlety. There's Marsyas, legs like a goat, beard like he's lost multiple arguments with a brush, chest bare and bristling with confidence. The flute at his lips glows faintly, not with magic, but with love. Love for the music, for the freedom, for the feeling of being heard. You expect Apollo to smite him on the spot, but instead he smiles. "Charming," he says in a tone that means the opposite. "You play well, for a creature who sheds." Marsyas lowers the flute and grins. There's not an ounce of fear in him. Possibly because he has no idea who this is. Possibly because he does and doesn't care. "Thanks," he replies. "You're not bad either. Who's your teacher?" Silence. Somewhere a cricket snorts. Apollo tilts his head. "I am music. I taught Orpheus. I tuned the first lyre from turtle shell and starlight." Marsyas shrugs. "Cool. I learned from a stream. It gurgled in G major. And that's it. That's the moment it happens. Not the challenge. Not yet. But the decision. The knowledge, deep and unshakable in Apollo's spine, that this satyr cannot be allowed to win. That the forest cannot remember this music as better. Even if it kind of is. You feel it too. This tension. Like when two actors show up in the same outfit to the red carpet, but one of them clearly wears it better. Apollo smiles, but it's the kind of smile that makes crops fail. "Let's make it official," he says. "A contest. My lyre, your flute. One song each. The muses will judge." Marsyas nods. He doesn't know the muses are Apollo's biggest fans. He doesn't care. He's not in it to win. He's in it to play. But Apollo, he's already planning his encore. You watch as they shake hands, palm to palm, divine light brushing against mortal bravado. It's an agreement written in sound and pride. And just for a moment, time holds its breath. You almost hear the judges tuning up in the clouds. You lean back, letting the forest fade around you, the warm echo of the flute chasing the last note, of Apollo's smile. Because now you know, this isn't just a contest, it's a reckoning, and no matter who wins, someone's going to lose more than pride. The forest is different now. Not louder, not quieter, just expectant. Like it knows something's about to go down. You can feel it in the roots beneath your feet, in the hush between breezes. Even the trees seem to hold their breath as though the rustle of a single leaf might throw off the rhythm of what's to come. And there, in the middle of it all, is Marsyas. He's pacing, barefoot, the way you do when you're about to give a presentation and suddenly forget how to spell your own name, except he's not nervous, just energized. Like the air is too thick with adrenaline to stand still. He's still gripping his flute, twirling it occasionally between fingers like a drumstick, humming under his breath. You watch him rehearse, if you can call it that. He plays short bursts, messy and raw. But oh, they're alive. Notes dart like dragonflies, fluttering and buzzing, refusing to be caught or caged. Marsyas isn't a technician. He's a spark, and whether or not the gods respect it, he's going to burn a little tonight. Meanwhile, somewhere deeper in the woods, Apollo is tuning his lyre like he's about to headline Coachella. Each string hums perfectly, impossibly so, and when he plays even a single chord, it resonates through your ribs. You swear your heartbeat syncs to the rhythm. Annoying, sure, but also weirdly satisfying. Apollo doesn't rehearse. He doesn't need to. He polishes. Because Apollo knows something Marsyas doesn't. This isn't just a concert. It's an opportunity. A moment to reassert dominance over the musical universe, remind Olympus who the conductor is, and, possibly, humble a satyr so hard he'll give up music and take up. What do satyrs do when they're sad? Cheese-making. The day of the contest arrives with no sun. Ironically, Apollo has dimmed it. On purpose, probably. Just a tasteful golden glow, like someone turned the saturation down on reality. The muses are already there, perched on ethereal. Benches shaped like clouds with excellent lumbar support. There are 9 of them, if you're counting, and each one is effortlessly elegant in that intimidating, unapproachable kind of way. One's already taking notes, another's pretending not, to yawn. A third is live sketching the scene on a scroll with charcoal that probably costs more than your rent. You take your seat on a mossy log that offers surprising lumbar support of its own. Then you hear it. Let us begin. Apollo steps into the clearing, gold trailing him like a cape. His feet don't quite touch the ground. His expression is serene, but in that, I just deleted your entire playlist and made you think it was your fault kind of way. He strums his lyre once, and the forest shifts, trees straighten, wind stills, even your breathing slows. The first note is a ripple, the second, a wave. By the third, you've forgotten why you were anxious, forgotten your name, forgotten your student loans. He plays without effort, fingers moving with such grace it's almost rude. The song rises like dawn, layered and textured like someone painting emotion with sound. There's a passage so gentle you feel tears tickle your throat. And then, just as you're about to float off into a warm sunbeam of euphoria, he ends. Just like that, like he didn't even try. The muses nod politely, even though 2 are openly swooning and 1 has drawn 3 extra hearts around his name. Apollo steps back. Your turn. Marsyas clears his throat. The flute looks humble in his hands now, like a paper straw after someone just unveiled a platinum espresso machine. But he doesn't flinch. He steps forward, takes a breath, and begins. It's chaotic. The first few notes trip over each other, like puppies on ice. But then something shifts. Marsyas closes his eyes, tilts his head, and feels. The song builds, not like a temple, but like a bonfire. Uncontrolled, lively, wild. Where Apollo's music was polished marble, Marsyas's is cracked earth and blooming weeds. You hear rhythm that makes your toes tap against your will. A sudden, high note makes a squirrel 2 trees over faint with joy. There's a moment where even a muse gasps, then pretends she didn't. But it's the middle section that gets you. Marsyas plays a passage so strangely honest, it's like someone bottled vulnerability and poured it directly into your ears. It's messy, unpredictable, and maybe, just maybe, more human than anything Apollo's ever played. He ends on a note that wobbles slightly, imperfectly, and yet, silence. Then whispers. Not from the muses, from the trees, from the grass, from something older. The forest liked it. You liked it, but did the judges? Apollo, to his credit, does not explode immediately. He just smiles thinly, like someone who bit into a cupcake and found out it was gluten-free after they swallowed. Very expressive, he says. Marsyas bows, maybe a little too deeply, and there it is, that moment where you think, okay, maybe this ends peacefully. Maybe the gods will be chill for once. But that's when Apollo adds, almost casually, I propose a second round. You feel the air snap. Marsyas blinks. I thought it was one round. I propose, Apollo says, voice, like velvet and razors, that in the next round we both play and sing. You pause. Marsyas pauses. Even the muses pause. One drops her charcoal stick. Because here's the thing. Satyrs don't sing like gods. They're creatures of breath and bellow, not melody and meaning. And Apollo, he could hum a traffic report and make you cry. You lean forward. The stage has shifted. This isn't just music anymore. This is strategy. And Marsyas, he just walked into a second act no one warned him about. You can almost hear the record scratch if records had existed in ancient Phrygia. The moment hangs there, awkward and shimmering, like someone just told a centaur he's been galloping wrong his whole life. Marsyas looks around, waiting for someone, anyone, to object. The muses glance at each other, eyebrows raised, lips pressed tight, but none of them speak, because no one says no to Apollo. Not when he's smiling like that. You notice it now. The smile doesn't reach his eyes. It's polished, tight, gleaming like a weapon that hasn't been unsheathed in a while. Marsyas, ever the optimist, shrugs and nods. Sure, he says. Let's sing. You don't know whether to admire him or dig a shallow escape tunnel under your mossy log. Maybe both. The second round begins with less ceremony. The winds died down, the lights a little colder, and the muses are fidgeting like this just turned from concert to court case. Apollo raises his lyre and sings. Oh, it's not fair. His voice isn't just beautiful. It's the blueprint of beautiful. It's what lullabies want to be when they grow up. It's golden syrup and cathedral echoes and the sigh of someone being told they're enough for the first time. The lyrics, of course, they're in ancient Greek, but you don't need to understand the words. You feel them. They tell a story of light, of triumph, of order, of the world spun into rhythm by the strum of his fingers. Even the trees lean in, like they're trying to remember their choreography. He sings one note that makes a distant deer flop over in a swoon. When he's done, he doesn't bow. He just looks at Marsyas. Your turn. Now, let's be honest. Marsyas is not a trained vocalist. He's never been taught scales by the river nymphs or harmonized with sirens on long sea journeys. His voice cracks a little at first, like a teenager's or a badly tuned recorder, but he keeps going. And somehow, it's okay. Marsyas doesn't sing like Apollo. He sings like someone trying, someone aching, someone who's been overlooked, underestimated, and still wants to be heard. His song is not polished, but it is true. He sings of the forest, of wandering, of the flute that found him, and the joy of making music when no one expected it. He sings of being free and lonely and brave. And you, yes, you feel it, a lump in your throat. Even a muse wipes at her eye discreetly with the corner of her robe, and for a second, just a second, it feels like maybe this isn't about who sings prettier. Maybe it's about why they sing. But Apollo doesn't live in second chances. He steps forward. "That's not fair," he says, loud enough for everyone. The rules of the contest were clear: music and voice in harmony. Marsyas blinks. "I did sing." Apollo's smile tightens. "You didn't sing well." One of the muses opens. Her mouth then shuts it again. Another taps nervously on her scroll, and here's where it gets tricky. Because no one actually declared Apollo the winner, but no one contradicts him either. There's a moment of suspended tension, like the top note of a song that never resolves, a moment when everything might still be okay. Then Apollo steps forward again. "Let the punishment befit the hubris," he says. Your stomach drops, because you've read the myths. You know what comes next. But Marsyas? He just frowns. "Wait, punishment?" Apollo doesn't answer. He raises a hand and calls for the flaying. It's one of those moments where everything inside you screams, "Surely not. Surely this is metaphor. Surely the gods wouldn't." But you forget. Greek myths are allergic to subtlety. The forest holds its breath again. The muses stand. One looks away. Another turns pale. A third vanishes entirely in a tasteful swirl of fog, and Marsyas, brave, bold, goat-legged Marsyas, finally understands. This wasn't a contest, it was a warning. He tries to step back, but Apollo gestures and vines shoot from the ground, binding the satyr in place. The earth itself is complicit. Even now, Marsyas doesn't beg, doesn't scream. He just says softly, "You're better than this." But Apollo's already looking past him, past the scene, past the morality. He's focused on silence, on never hearing that flute again. You want to look away. You really do. But you can't, not because you want to see, but because you feel in your bones that history always repeats what we refuse to remember. And the truth is, Marsyas didn't lose because he played badly. He lost because he dared to play at all. You don't remember deciding to move, but your feet are walking anyway. Away from the clearing, away from the silence that's heavier than thunder. Behind you, the wind picks up again, carrying with it the last fading notes of Marsyas's song, still echoing faintly through the trees like a lullaby cut short. And in your chest, something tightens. It's not just the brutality, it's the absurdity. A music contest, remember? That's how all this started. Two musicians, a flute, a lyre, a bet, a performance, and then this. You're trying to make sense of it, maybe to justify it, or at least explain it in that way we do when someone awful happens and we say things like, "It was a different time," or "The gods worked," in mysterious, highly theatrical ways. But some things, they just don't get neatened up, especially not in mythology. You step around a large tree, and suddenly you're somewhere else again. Time's melted. Space is sleepy. Everything here feels older, softer. You're not alone now. A group of mortals have gathered at the base of a rocky cliff. Their heads are bowed. One of them, a sculptor judging by the fine layer of marble dust on his robe, lays down tools and begins chiseling gently at the wall. The stone is already streaked red. Not paint, not quite blood either. "This is where they say it happened," someone murmurs. You recognize it. The place where Marsyas's body was supposedly hung, his skin stripped like bark from a tree. The myth says Apollo did it himself. Others claim he made a follower do it, his hands too holy for such gore. The stories differ. Historians are still arguing, by the way, about which region first recorded the event. Some think it happened in Selene, in Phrygia. Others argue the river Meander was the true witness, but no one disagrees about the result. Marsyas's name was etched into the land. Literally. The river that sprang from the rocks was said to be his blood. The wind that whistled through the gorge, his last breath. And some say that on the rare nights when no music is played on earth, you can still hear his flute echoing up through the stones. You step closer. The rock under your hand is cool and rough. Etched there, barely visible through moss and time, is a single line. Let none challenge the gods in song. A warning, or maybe a confession. A little boy nearby is watching the sculptor. Why did Apollo do it? He asks. The sculptor doesn't. Stop carving. Because Marsyas dared, he replies, and sometimes daring is punished. Even if you're right? Especially then. You sit beside them for a while and the sounds of hammer and chisel become oddly rhythmic, musical, even. You try to hum one of Marsyas's melodies, but it doesn't come. It's faded. Or maybe it was never yours to carry. Further down the path, another shrine has been built. No statues of Marsyas, just offerings, flutes, reeds, cups of wine, old poems scrawled on parchment. Someone's left a half-eaten fig. There's something touching about that. Real. Like even in loss, Marsyas earned a kind of worship. He didn't become a god, but he became something, a symbol, a song. A question nobody quite knows how to answer. The ancient Greeks were excellent at that, by the way, turning tragedies into philosophy. They didn't shy away from cruelty. They etched it into stone, sang it in plays, wore it like an uncomfortable robe, and called it wisdom. You lean back, staring up at the sky. Apollo's still up there somewhere, riding his chariot, shining light on things whether we want him to or not. But you wonder, does he ever look down at this place? Does he ever remember? Some say yes, that he planted laurels here in secret, that he played mournful songs on his lyre for decades afterward, that the reason his melodies are always so flawless, so structured, is because he's been trying to write the one song that undoes what he did. But perfection doesn't bring people back. It only makes the silence between notes feel louder. And you, wandering through myth and music, begin to understand something soft and terrible. This wasn't just a punishment, it was a message, a reminder from the divine to the mortal world. Stay in your lane. And yet, we never do we? You think of Icarus, flying too close, Prometheus, stealing fire, Pandora, lifting the lid. Mortals, with their squishy hearts and stubborn minds, always testing boundaries they weren't meant to cross. Marsyas just happened to do it with a flute. You hear something now? A whisper? A note? No. It's the wind, carrying the sound of someone trying again to play. A child somewhere with a reed and a dream. A musician writing in candlelight. A teenager humming into their pillow at night. Even after all this time, the music hasn't stopped. Even after the gods said, don't. That might be the real lesson, or maybe it's just a lullaby wrapped in tragedy. Either way, you're still listening, and the forest is too. It's darker now, not just in the forest, but in the myth itself. The kind of darkness that doesn't need shadows, just silence. A thick, humming quiet, like after a concert ends and everyone's too stunned to clap. You walk slowly, your feet brushing fallen leaves that don't crunch, only sigh. The trees here feel older, less like spectators, more like archivists. They've seen this part before. You find yourself on a slope that feels forgotten. No shrines, no flowers, no scribbled verses left by starry-eyed poets. Just a hollow breeze and the faint smell of pine sap and something colder underneath. A stone rests at the center of the clearing, flat and long, just large enough to lie on, or be tied to. You don't need to be told. This is where. The flaying. The moment everyone skips over in the stories or sugarcoats with metaphors. But in the oldest versions, ones buried deep in dusty scrolls and whispered around fires, they don't look away. And neither do you. You imagine it, though it turns your stomach. Marsyas, stretched out on this slab, the very vines that once danced to his music now holding him down. Apollo standing above, face unreadable, and in his hand, a knife. Not forged in war or vengeance, but music, razor sharp, honed by pride, and tuned to a single, cruel note. The myths say Apollo skinned him alive. But the myths also say he didn't blink, and maybe that's the worst part. You sit down on the grass, unsure if you're supposed to feel horror, sorrow, or just that heavy numbness that creeps in when something doesn't make sense, when justice turns sideways. The question hangs in the air, soft and trembling. Why? Not why Marsyas challenged a god. Mortals do that all the time. But why this punishment? Why not exile or silence or even the crushing disappointment of being ghosted by Olympus? Why this? Some say it was symbolic, a way for Apollo to peel, away the hubris, the arrogance, the mortal pride that dared to believe it could match divinity. To show that under talent and charm, Marsyas was just skin, flawed and temporary. Others think it was rage. Apollo, after all, wasn't just the god of harmony. He was the god of order, of balance, of things being exactly where and what they're supposed to be. Marsyas broke that balance by existing, by playing too well, by not apologizing for it, and Apollo couldn't bear it. Some historians, you murmur to yourself, still argue whether the contest ever happened. You almost laugh. The idea that this whole myth might have been made up, a metaphor, a cautionary tale about creativity, class, or even artistic gatekeeping. But here's the thing. There's a river nearby. It's still called Marsyas. And people still throw flutes into it during certain festivals. That's not the kind of tribute you give to someone imaginary. You reach into your pocket and find nothing, but you wish you had something to offer. A song, maybe. Or a memory. Or just an apology you didn't create, but somehow feel responsible for. That's the strange thing about myths. They make you complicit. You read them, tell them, repeat them, and somewhere along the way you become a carrier, a witness. The wind picks up again and you hear it. Not music, not yet, but a rhythm. Faint, slow, like breath. You close your eyes, and suddenly you're there. Not in the forest, but in a different kind of space. A hall echoing with the thrum of instruments tuning. Candles flicker along the walls. And at the far end of the room, Apollo, backlit, haloed in firelight. His lyre in hand. He's not playing. He's remembering. His posture's different now. There's no swagger, no divine glow. Just a weight hanging from his shoulders, too heavy for poetry to carry. You see him raise his hand, but the strings don't sing. They whimper. Because here's the secret Apollo will never say aloud. He hated that Marsyas made him feel, not just angry, not just threatened. Human and gods, they don't handle that well. You watch him in silence. Watch him try to write it away. Note after note, song after song. But no melody softens that particular echo. No chord unwinds guilt that deep. So he plays again and again. Not because he loves the sound, but because he's trying to drown out the one voice that didn't tremble when it challenged him. And still, in the gaps between his songs, you hear the flute. It plays on. Somewhere. Always. The path you're walking now is narrow, like the myth itself is hesitant to take you further. Trees grow closer together here, and the leaves above knit into a quiet ceiling. Light filters through in ribbons, pale and dusty, like a forgotten rehearsal stage waiting for its next act. And in this dim hush, something strange happens. You hear laughter, soft, musical, not quite mortal. You follow it, winding past vines and moss and stones shaped like half-forgotten instruments. Then you reach it, a strange little amphitheater carved right into the side of a hill. It's overgrown now, swallowed by ivy and time, but the steps are still there, still curved, still holding memories like echoes. And there, sitting on the lowest step, is a woman with storm-colored eyes and a smirk like she knows something you don't. Athena. Yep, that Athena. Not in armor, not brandishing a spear, just watching, as if she's been here the whole time. You blink, and she's closer. Not threatening, just curious. Her voice when she speaks is low and smooth. He wasn't supposed to find it, you know. She doesn't need to say what it is. You already know. The flute. I made it from the bones of a dying bird, she continues. Thought I'd captured its final cry. She lifts one hand, delicate fingers drawing something invisible in the air. A melody? A regret? It worked, she says. Too well. You're not sure what she means, until she gives you a look that feels like a lesson. The music made me weep. Not from beauty, from shame. I played it once. Saw my face in a stream, cheeks puffed, eyes bulging, ridiculous, un-goddess-like. So I cursed it and threw it away. She shrugs, no guilt in her tone, just memory. And then that little goat man picked it up and made it sing. She stands now, brushing moss from her tunic. Not that it was ever dirty. Funny, isn't it? I created something too vulnerable, rejected it, and it became someone else's voice. You look at her, really look, and for a moment she looks tired. Not in body, in myth. Like she's lived too long inside a story that never quite finishes. Apollo hated that flute, she murmurs, not because it was out of tune, but because it made people feel things he couldn't control. That, you realize, is the real danger. Not disobedience, not disrespect, uncontrollable beauty. The kind that doesn't fit into temples or scrolls. The kind that doesn't ask permission before moving you. The kind that makes even a god feel unnecessary. Athena turns to go, but pauses. Tell me, she says over her shoulder, if you had found it, would you have played it? You hesitate, because the answer is yes. Of course, yes, anyone would. That's the point, and she knows it. She smiles, just a little. That's why there will always be another Marsyas. Then she's gone. Not in a puff of smoke, she's too composed for that. Just a shimmer, like a thought slipping out of reach. You sit on the edge of the amphitheater now, staring at the empty stage. The echoes of Marsyas still linger here, clumsy, joyful, alive. You can almost see him, hoof tapping, cheeks puffed, eyes wide with the thrill of being heard, and suddenly you realize what's so painful about all this. It's not that he lost, it's that he almost won, and that terrified the gods more than anything. Because if a creature like Marsyas, a satyr, a nobody, could stir hearts with nothing but breath and bone, then who else might? Who else might sing something that doesn't ask for approval, doesn't seek perfection, just is? You feel it in your own chest now, that hum, the itch to create. Not for praise, not for judgment, just to leave something behind that was yours. And maybe, just maybe, that's the part of Marsyas that lives on. By now, the forest barely pretends to be a forest. It's more like a memory softened by age, a painting that's been smudged at the edges. Trees lean like old men with secrets, and even the air feels quieted, as if it's trying to listen to itself. You tread carefully, your steps muffled by pine needles and damp earth. The wind carries no song tonight, only a rhythm, faint and persistent, like a heartbeat beneath the soil. And then you see it, a stream, clear, winding, slow, not flashy, not grand, just present. It murmurs to itself in a language older than any scroll. You kneel beside it, cupping water in your hands. It's cool, bracing, tastes like mineral and memory. They call it the river Marsyas. Not the largest, not the deepest, but it endures. According to legend, this is where the satyr's blood fell. Apollo, after the punishment, allowed the water to rise up and cleanse the earth. Or maybe it wasn't mercy at all, just a divine reflex, a cleanup, a cover-up. Still, the river stayed. Locals say it sings at dusk, that reeds along its banks bend even when there's no wind, that fish here swim in strange, swirling patterns as if dancing. You sit on a stone and close your eyes, and sure enough, the water begins to hum, not loudly, not theatrically, just enough. It's a song with no chorus, no refrain, no lyrics, no ego, but it pulls you in, and before you realize it, your fingers are tracing shapes in the silt, mimicking rhythms you don't remember learning. You're not alone. An old man approaches the stream from the opposite bank. His beard is wild, eyes sharp. He doesn't speak, just pulls a pipe from a satchel, hand-carved, worn smooth by time. He plays, 3 notes, simple, and the river answers. It's not Marsyas. You know that. The satyr's long gone, but the music remains. It's passed from hand to hand, note to note, breath to breath. Unwritten, unrecorded, but known. That's what music is after all, a memory that moves. The man finishes his tune and nods to you. Not approval, not judgment, just acknowledgement. You realize something then, something subtle and a little heartbreaking. Marsyas didn't die in vain. He died unfinished, a melody unresolved. And the river, this old man, even you're all still writing the rest. It reminds you of that one song you can't stop humming even though you never remember the words, or the poem that gets stuck in your throat every time you try to recite it. There's beauty in that incompletion. It's alive. That's the part Apollo never understood. Maybe still doesn't. His music ends. Marsyas's doesn't. It slips through fingers, slips through rules, slips through divine commandment like water. And nothing terrifies a god more than something they can't control. You stand. The river murmurs its farewell, and you continue walking. Downstream now, letting the current guide your feet. The path widens. Hills slope gently. The air warms. You begin to hear voices. Not gods. Children, a group of them, scattered near a grove, each holding a handmade flute or reed. They play badly. Notes squeak, melodies collapse. Someone is trying to beatbox. It's chaos. It's perfect. No one scolds. No one competes. They're just making noise together. One girl plays a tune that sounds suspiciously like Twinkle, Twinkle, and then turns it into something else entirely. The boy next to her claps in time. Another one whistles. You watch them from a distance, heart strangely full, because this is how it starts again. Not in Olympus, not in temples, but in small, fearless acts of creation. And somewhere, deep in the underbrush, maybe Marsyas is laughing, because the gods can play the body. But they can't silence the song. Not really. Night has thickened now, draping over the hills like velvet soaked in ink. The stars have come out, not all at once, but gradually, like reluctant performers stepping onto a quiet stage. You followed the river so far it no longer looks like the same stream. It's broader here, smoother, the current patient, like it knows exactly where it's going. And you're beginning to wonder the same. You spot it just ahead. A small village tucked against a hillside. Olive trees dot the landscape, their silver leaves shimmering faintly in the moonlight. It doesn't look like much, a few homes, a dusty path, and at the center, a square with a circle of stones that must be older than the village itself. You enter quietly, not wanting to disturb whatever memory this place is protecting. There's a fire pit in the middle of the square, long extinguished. Around it are benches, stone, worn by time and weather. It feels like a place where people used to gather, to tell stories, to sing, to remember. You sit, and in the hush, the past creeps close again. You can almost hear them, villagers long gone, clapping in time, passing around cups of watered wine, a lyre playing softly, a flute joining in, hesitant, then bold. Laughter, off-key singing, someone shouting the wrong lyrics with absolute confidence. Not a concert. A celebration. That's what Marsyas gave them. Not perfection. Participation. And maybe that's what Apollo could never forgive. Because in the world of the gods, art was to be worshipped. Elevated, pure, untouchable, theirs. But Marsyas, he made it ours, a satyr, hoofed, messy, joyful. He played with no agenda, no audience in mind. Just breath, reed, and rhythm. He played because he had to. And that kind of music, it spreads. You feel it in your chest again. That ache. Not sadness. Not quite. Just that complicated emotion you get when you realize something beautiful has passed through you, and all you can do is hope it stays. The wind shifts, and from one of the homes nearby, you hear it. Music. Faint, unpolished, a melody being practiced on some kind of wooden flute. It stumbles, falters, repeats, but it's there. A child learning, failing, trying again. You smile. You don't need to see them to know what they look like. Sitting cross-legged on a floor, maybe by candlelight. Lips pressed to read, brows furrowed, heart too big for the room. Marsyas lives there now, not in statues, in moments. In every kid who picks up an instrument they don't know how to play. In every person who sings off-key on purpose. In every soul who dares to create something that might not be perfect, and does it. Anyway, the gods may hold Olympus, but the music belongs to the rest of us. And you, dear listener, you're part of that lineage now, just by listening, by wondering, by carrying the story forward. It's getting late. The stars are leaning in. You look up, and for a moment, you think, you see a shape in the sky. A curl of light, like a satyr mid-laugh, dancing across the constellations. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe it's everything. Because some stories don't need to be true. They just need to be felt. And tonight, you've felt it. By now, the night has folded in on itself, soft as a lullaby. The forest, the village, the river, they all feel like pieces of a dream you've been walking through without realizing you were asleep. Your limbs are lighter, your thoughts slower. Even the stars seem quieter, like they're watching rather than shining. And in this gentler darkness, you arrive at a place that feels like the edge of the story. A temple. Or what's left of one. The columns are broken, the roof long gone, vines curling through cracks like memories refusing to be erased. But there's something sacred here. Not in the marble, not in the layout, but in the absence, the stillness. This isn't Apollo's temple. This was Marsyas's. Not officially, of course. There are no records, no priesthoods, no hymns codified into doctrine. But someone built this. Someone set stones in a circle and said, "Here, this is where we'll remember the one who played." You step inside. The altar is nothing more than a flat rock, chipped and weathered. there are no gold offerings. Just a few dried flowers, a smooth pebble with a spiral carved into it, a handmade flute, cracked at the mouthpiece but carefully placed. And behind the altar, carved into the stone, barely visible, is a single phrase. He played because it was enough. You sit in front of it, not to pray, not even to think, just to be. Because in this place there's nothing to prove. No judges, no contests, no divine egos waiting to be flattered, just the story of someone who created without permission, who made art not to impress, but because he had something inside him that needed to be sung. And you wonder, when did we forget that was enough? Somewhere far away, Apollo is likely still polishing melodies, perfecting compositions, tuning and retuning his golden lyre. But you imagine, because you want to imagine, that he comes here too, sometimes, at night, when no one's watching. And maybe, just maybe, he sets his lyre down on this old altar and listens. Not to the wind, not to the muses, but to the silence between notes. Because that's where Marsyas lives now. In that sacred pause where expectation falls away and music simply happens. You breathe in, slow, deep, and feel something shift in your chest. Not a revelation, not even a resolution, just space. The kind of space where stories breathe and songs begin, or maybe, just maybe, where gods finally learn to let go. You rise, gently, carefully, as if not to wake something sleeping just beneath the stone, and as you step out of the ruins, the first blush of dawn brushes the horizon. Light returns, not in triumph, but in quiet acceptance. The world hasn't changed. But maybe you have. Maybe now, when you hear a melody on the breeze, or stumble upon a child humming nonsense while they draw spirals in the dirt, you'll remember, not the punishment, not the contest, but the courage it takes to make a sound in a world that wants silence. And how sometimes the most radical thing you can do is play anyway. The morning doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps in, quiet, reluctant, like a guest unsure if they're welcome after the story you've just been through. The trees are no longer silhouettes but soft outlines, their leaves washed in silver light. Somewhere, a bird chirps a hesitant melody, off-key but sincere. You smile. You're not sure if you're still dreaming, but it doesn't matter. This place, this myth, has loosened your sense of time. You walk now along a narrow ridge. Below, a vast valley yawns open, its surface stitched with olive groves and ancient roads. The wind carries a different scent here. Sun-warmed rock, wild thyme, and something nostalgic. The kind of smell that makes you miss things you've never had. Up ahead is another shrine, small and unmarked, sitting at the edge of a cliff like it grew there. Just a low stone platform, a few steps, and a single sculpture. But this one's not Apollo. It's him, Marsyas, and not the Marsyas you expected. Not in agony, not bound or punished. This sculpture is different. He's sitting, legs folded, flute resting in his lap. His head is tilted to one side as if listening to something only he can hear. Peaceful, and you stand there for a long time, watching stone turn golden in the morning light. No one's around. No priest, no tourists, no plaque, just you and him. And for the first time, you realize something crucial that you'd missed in all the drama. Marsyas never stopped playing, not even when he lost, not when he was punished, not when they wrote him into myth as a warning instead of a wonder. Because to Marsyas, the music was never about winning, it was about being. You step forward and run your fingers along the stone. It's cool, worn smooth by time and reverence. Someone's left a bundle of reeds tied with string beside the base. A small note tucked underneath reads, "For the ones who play, even when told not to." And again, that feeling returns, like something swelling in your chest that isn't quite sadness or pride or longing. It's a kind of quiet defiance, the kind that hums. You sit beside the statue and take a breath, not to speak, not to ask questions, just to join him. You imagine Marsyas hearing your breath and nodding. Good. Still breathing, still singing, still here. That's what music does after all. It carries us forward. You think of all the versions of this story that were told, some with Apollo as hero, others as villain. Some where Marsyas was reckless, others where he was brave. But through every version, one thing remains: the music, echoing through caves and rivers and the hands of children learning to play. You pick up one of the reeds and blow across the top. It doesn't make a beautiful sound, not even close, but it's enough, because it's yours. And somewhere, miles away, maybe even centuries, Apollo hears it. Maybe he pauses. Maybe he sighs. Maybe he even smiles. Because deep down, even gods need someone to play against, someone who reminds them why they started in the first place. You don't notice the path change, but suddenly the ground beneath you is smoother, more deliberate. Stones have been laid here, ancient ones, worn by centuries of footsteps. The trail winds gently between low hills where the grass grows, long and golden, like a field that remembers every season it's ever seen. And in the distance, perched delicately at the hill's crest, is a theater, not a grand one. No carved marble seats or echoing domes. This is older, humbler, an outdoor stage etched into the landscape itself. Just curved tiers of stone hugging a shallow bowl of earth, and at its center, a platform no bigger than a cart. You descend without hurry, because somehow, you know what, waits there. Tonight, there's no performance scheduled, no crowds, no gods. But the stage remembers, and that's enough. You sit on the front row, your knees nearly touching the platform. The wind brushes past like a stagehand adjusting curtains. The sky is painted with that pale blue to pink haze that only exists just before twilight, a liminal light. A pause, a breath, then, out of the silence, a voice. We've always needed stories. You glance around, but there's no one. No figure, no movement, just the voice. Soft, deep, like a narrator who's been waiting for centuries to begin. That's why they were made. Not to teach, not to scold, but to hold. To wrap around you like a blanket on nights when the gods feel too far away. And somehow, you know, this voice isn't Apollo. It's not Marsyas. It's the myth itself, the story speaking now. You close your eyes, and it continues. They tell you Marsyas lost, but he didn't, because he played, even when told not to, even when the odds were divine, even when the consequence was more than a mortal should bear. And still, he played. You listen, the sound of your breath syncing with the breeze that loops through the empty amphitheater. Every generation retells this tale, and each time someone new hears their own voice in his. The singer who performs without applause. The writer who scribbles lines no one reads. The dancer spinning in a room without mirrors. The child humming into the dark. You see them now, in your mind's eye. All the people who kept singing, drawing, playing, long after they were told they weren't good enough. Who made art without permission. Who weren't perfect. Who weren't Apollo, but who made something alive. The myth sighs. We call them foolish. We call them brave. But really, they're just necessary. And you're one of them. You've always been one of them, even if you forgot. You open your eyes. The sun is nearly gone now, dipping behind the hills like a candle's last flicker. Shadows stretch long and slow, pooling into the folds of the land, but you feel no fear. Because this place, this story, has made room for you, not as a spectator, as a continuation. The amphitheater is still empty, but you hear a note drift through the air, soft, clear, unclaimed, an invitation. You don't know the tune, but that never mattered. You hum anyway, and for the first time you don't wonder who's listening, because you are. The sky above you has deepened into indigo, neither day nor night, but the in-between. That gentle blur where colors go to rest before becoming stars. You rise from the stone bench in the amphitheater, your legs tingling like you've just returned, from somewhere far more distant than this hillside. And maybe you have. The wind has shifted direction, cooler now, brushing your skin like fingers turning the last page of a book. You follow it, not because you know where it leads, but because it feels like the right moment to be led. The path narrows, edged with whispering grass, and as you walk, a thought begins to settle in your chest. Maybe the story doesn't end where people think it does. Because while most remember Marsyas for the contest, the punishment, the tragic finale, you have seen something different. Not the ending, the echo. You come to a small plateau, high above the valley. Below, the land spreads out like a painting faded by candlelight. Villages, rivers, groves, and far beyond that, the glint of the sea, silent and watching. You're not alone up here. There's someone waiting, a woman in a cloak of deep green, stitched with tiny constellations. Her hair is braided with reeds, her fingers stained with ink. She doesn't look up when you arrive, just continues carving tiny letters into a piece of driftwood with a knife that glints like memory. You recognize her, one of the muses, maybe Calliope, maybe Polyhymnia, maybe none of them and all of them. She speaks without turning. You've come a long way. You nod, and then realize she can't see you nod, but somehow she knows anyway. She finishes carving, then holds the piece of wood to the sky as if reading it aloud. Let them play. She sets it gently into the grass. We fought for him, you know, she says, finally meeting your eyes. The muses, after the contest. She waves vaguely toward the east, where the river Marsyas still winds like a vein. We said it wasn't fair. That talent should be celebrated. That rules can't bind what moves the soul. You wait for her to say, Apollo listened. She doesn't. He didn't hear us, she says. Not then more softly. But he hears now. You tilt your head. You mean, he regrets it? She smiles sadly. Even the sun has shadows. There's a pause. Then she asks gently, would you like to see where it began? And before you can answer, she's already walking, down a slope you hadn't noticed before, toward a thicket of trees shaped like a spiral. You follow. Through the thicket, past ancient stones and soft earth, until you reach a small clearing. There's nothing extraordinary about it. Just grass. And a single tree, bent low by age. But you feel it. This is where Marsyas first played the flute, where breath met bone and became more than either, where art was born not in triumph, but curiosity. The muse kneels, brushing her hand over the roots of the tree like she's greeting an old friend. You sit beside her. Silence stretches between you, not awkward, but rich, restful. Finally, she says, the gods never wanted perfection. You blink. What? They wanted to feel something, she whispers, and they feared anything that did that too well. She glances sideways at you. That's why mortals matter. The words settle like dust in lamplight. You don't know what to say. so you do what Marsyas would have done. You reach down, break off a reed, and play. Just a note. One breath, barely a whisper. But in the hush that follows, the muse closes her eyes and smiles. The reed in your hand feels warm now, shaped by your breath, your fingers. It's nothing divine, just hollow plant fiber and your own awkward exhale, but still, it lingers in the air like it matters. And maybe it does. The muse stands slowly, brushing soil from her hands, and gives you a look that holds centuries. Not heavy, just knowing, like someone who's watched every version of this story unfold, over and over in endless variations. "You played," she says, not a compliment, not a judgment, just a fact. You nod, not because you're proud, not because you're certain, but because you did. That's enough. She begins to walk again, and you follow. The thicket opens back into the hilltop, and now the light has shifted again. It's the hour when even gods go quiet. Twilight, soft and slow, when the world holds its breath for just a moment, and across the sky, a chariot of gold, Apollo, riding the horizon like it's the edge of a record spinning one last time before the needle lifts. But he doesn't look like he did in the myths. There's no blinding light, no triumphant pose, just a figure outlined. In dusk, his lyre resting against his hip like a burden he forgot how to carry. He doesn't look down at the world. He looks inward. The muse lifts her eyes to him. No wave, no call, just presence. And Apollo, far above, pauses. You feel it. He knows someone just played again at the roots of Marsyas's tree. Knows someone walked the same path. Knows the song never ended. You wonder what he feels. Shame, regret, jealousy, maybe none of those, maybe something harder. Longing. Because Apollo, for all his glory, can never do what Marsyas did. Play without needing to be worshipped. Create without needing to be right. That freedom, it only lives in mortals. You turn from the horizon now, the muse already fading back into mist and memory, and find yourself walking one final path. It's smoother now, not paved, not deliberate, just eased like something finally exhaled, and, at its end, a single stone, flat, plain, no temple, no statue, no altar, just a carving, not in Greek, not in any language, really, just a line that curves like a river. It says everything without a single word. You sit, because this is where the myth becomes yours. You've listened, you've walked, you've wondered. Now you understand, the gods will always have their temples. But Marsyas has us. In every late-night sketch, in every out-of-tune guitar, in every voice that dares to sing off-key just because it feels like singing. He exists wherever people choose expression over approval, where they make something imperfect. And do it anyway. You rest your hands on your knees, and let that thought settle in your bones. It's night again. Fully, completely. No more in-between colors, no lingering blush of sun, just darkness and stars. So many stars. They glitter across the sky like music notes scattered by a careless cosmic composer. Not arranged, not neat, just there. And somehow, that feels right. You're still sitting beside that final stone. The air around you has stilled, not like it's empty, but like it's full of something. Like the world is waiting, listening, maybe for a song, maybe for you. In the distance, a soft sound rises. You can't tell if it's wind through grass or someone playing a flute so gently the universe barely notices. But it's there, and then footsteps. Slow, deliberate, barefoot. You look up. He's there, Marsyas. No spectacle, no glow, no grand entrance, just a satyr. Hooves dusted with ash and earth, hair a little wild, eyes the kind of tired that comes not from pain, but from remembering too much. He doesn't speak, just sits beside you. The two of you stare out over the valley together. It stretches wide and quiet below, cradled by hills that hum with the memory of old music. And after a while, he does speak, not loudly, just enough to be heard. I didn't think anyone still came here. You don't answer. What could you say? He nods as if you replied anyway. They made me a warning, but I was never warning anyone. He pulls a small flute from his belt. It's cracked at the base, slightly warped, unimpressive by divine standards, but when he plays it, oh, it's not music you can describe. It's not beautiful. It's honest, and it slips into the night like it belongs there, weaving through shadows and stars alike. It doesn't ask you to feel anything. It just invites you to be. You sit in silence, the sound filling the space between your ribs. It carries things you didn't know you were holding. You think of all the times you almost created something and didn't, all the songs you didn't sing, the lines you didn't write, the ideas you doubted before they could breathe. And now they return, not as guilt, as possibility. Marsyas finishes the song. It ends not with a flourish, but a whisper, a release. That's the only kind of music that matters, he says. The kind that leaves room. He stands, brushing off his legs. Don't forget it, then he pauses. Actually, do. Forget it. Forget the story. Forget the gods. Forget me. He smiles, crooked and warm. Just remember how it felt. And with that, he steps into the trees, fading into the myth he came from. You sit there a little longer, letting the silence settle again, letting it hold you. Because now, the story has been told. Not for applause. Not for memory. Just because someone needed it. And maybe that someone was you. Now, lie back, let your breath slow. The grass cradles your body. The sky stretches wide above. Stars blink slowly, one by one. And the flute, you still hear it. Soft, steady, just beneath the wind, playing not for perfection, just for the night, just for now, just for you.